The year was 1858. America stood at a crossroads. The issue of slavery was tearing the nation apart, not only between the North and South, but within the hearts and minds of its people. In the state of Illinois, two powerful men stepped forward to battle, not with swords or guns, but with words and ideas. Abraham Lincoln and Stephen A. Douglas, and their debates would forever change the course of American history. Before 1858, Stephen A. Douglas was already a national figure, a U.S. senator known as the Little Giant for his fiery oratory and political dominance. He had crafted the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, allowing new territories to decide for themselves whether to permit slavery, a policy known as popular sovereignty. But this act had unleashed chaos. Violence erupted in Kansas, and Americans began to see just how deep the divisions over slavery truly ran. Enter Abraham Lincoln, a former congressman and rising star of the new Republican Party, which opposed the spread of slavery into new territories. Lincoln wasn't as famous as Douglas, but he had a sharp mind, moral conviction, and a way with words that stirred the soul. In 1858, both men were running for the U.S. Senate seat from Illinois. Lincoln challenged Douglas to a series of debates across the state, 7 in total, and Douglas accepted. Each debate would last 3 hours. One candidate spoke for an hour, the other for 90 minutes, and then the first had a 30-minute rebuttal. There were no microphones, no cameras, only the roar of the crowds and the passion of their words. From Ottawa to Alton, thousands of people gathered to listen. Trains brought in spectators from miles around, newspapers reprinted every word, and soon the entire nation was watching Illinois. At the heart of their clash was a single question: should slavery be allowed to expand into the Western territories? Douglas argued that each territory should decide for itself, that democracy meant letting the people rule. Lincoln countered that slavery was a moral wrong, that allowing it to spread would destroy the nation's founding principle that all men are created equal. Lincoln's speeches were powerful, filled with logic and moral conviction. He declared, "A house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently, half slave and half free." He didn't call for immediate abolition, but he refused to let slavery expand any further. Douglas, on the other hand, warned that Lincoln's ideas would tear the Union apart. He accused Lincoln of promoting racial equality, something deeply controversial in that era, and claimed his policies would ignite civil war. At the debate in Freeport, Lincoln trapped Douglas with a question. He asked whether settlers in a territory could exclude slavery before statehood, even if the Supreme Court said otherwise, referencing the recent Dred Scott decision, which ruled that African Americans could not be citizens and that Congress had no power to prohibit slavery in the territories. Douglas replied with what became known as the Freeport Doctrine, that territories could effectively keep slavery out by refusing to pass local laws supporting it. While this answer helped Douglas win re-election in Illinois, it split his support in the South and would later cost him the presidency. Lincoln lost the Senate race, but he had won something far greater. In 1860, just 2 years later, Abraham Lincoln would rise from that Illinois battlefield of ideas to become President of the United States. The Lincoln-Douglas debates were more than political theater. They were the soul of America laid bare. Their words echoed long after the crowds had gone home, and when the storm of civil war finally broke, the ideas first clashed in Illinois would define the very struggle for the nation's soul.